What do games like Concord, XDefiant, and the Finals all have in common? They all flopped despite being backed by huge studios with massive budgets. To paint a picture, like Concord had an alleged $400 million budget and completely flopped and shut down their servers within like 2 weeks. Like, that's insane. This honestly just seems to be a more and more common trend as of recent, and people will just completely forget that games existed one day and then just move back to what they're comfortable with or just find the next exciting thing to play. I'm Cam, and I'm gonna be exploring why video games from huge studios keep failing. Also, make sure to subscribe. That's important so you can see new videos that I have coming up, because you're gonna wanna watch all of them, no matter what the content's about. Probably not, but anyways. So first up we have Concord. Oh boy, this is a bad one. If you don't know what Concord already is, it's a multiplayer first-person shooter, hero shooter to be specific, with stylized graphics. I don't think I've ever heard that before either. Overwatch. So it was developed by a studio called Firewalk, which you're probably not super familiar with, but what you are definitely familiar with is the studio that owns them, which is Sony. They actually had a reported budget of $400 million.
The game cost about $400 million to make. Because we had kind of said, like, this must be Sony's biggest loss ever on a game, and it is. It's the biggest game Sony's ever released from a budgetary standpoint from the first party or second party. So let that sink in.
And the game struggled to break 700 concurrent players at launch. Like, for comparison, a multiplayer game like Lethal Company, which was solo developed by a 21-year-old, had almost 250,000 players 2 months after launch. This is a 21-year-old we're talking about who developed Roblox games. Concord has some really obvious fails, like right out the gate. What seemed to be a completely silent release with like no press on it whatsoever was already going to be a huge shot in the foot. And like also on top of this too, like the hero shooter genre is already kind of like past its prime right now. Not to say that games can't be good that are in the hero shooter genre. Honestly, it's just like they came a decade too late to the party here. And like even in the areas where Concord was able to change things up, like with the game modes as an example, it's just not enough to keep people interested, especially when there's so many hero shooters already established. Like, it's really hard to cut through the noise. A lot of people do shit on the art style of this game, and like I can kind of understand where they're coming from. Like, I think it's like whatever. Like, you do have like the funny trash can hero, which is definitely something to work with. But here's just like a funny comment that I read under a Jax Frag Concord video. Someone said it looks like a game you'd see someone playing in a movie. I don't know why, but I read that and I'm like, that is so true. This is like the default like first-person shooter game that someone's playing. It's just really hard to imagine that Sony, with all of their resources, just didn't account or plan for this like whatsoever. Like, I honestly have no clue how this happened. Enough about that, going into XDefiant. XDefiant is a boots-on-the-ground, free-to-play multiplayer shooter nicknamed the COD Killer. Developed by Ubisoft, it had over 1 million players on the launch day, and now it struggles to get 20,000 concurrent players. A huge draw here is that for COD players, there was no skill-based matchmaking, which has been a highly contested topic for a while now with the COD franchise. Skill-based matchmaking, or SBMM for short, is practically when you do good in a single match and then the algorithm just decides that you have to go up against FaZe Clan in the next match. Also, the cool thing that XDefiant had here was the factions. They were actually based on other Ubisoft titles like Watch Dogs and Far Cry, and they had abilities similar to a hero shooter, but it was definitely toned down a bit just to focus more on the gunplay and the basic utility. There was a huge plethora of issues, but just reading off like my notes here, there were poor netcode issues, they were super slow to release updates at launch, there's overpowered abilities, like no joke, there's like a wall hack ability for, I forgot what the faction's called, but like literally you can ping it like very quickly, and we all know that wall hacks in first-person shooters is a great idea. Honestly, like the main thing that was different about XDefiant was its factions, which was able to pull from a lot of different Ubisoft titles that already existed, yet it failed to like do anything super interesting with them. And honestly, I think GameRank summed it up the best, so I'm just gonna play a clip real quick as to probably what the largest value proposition was for XDefiant.
I like the factions. I think some of these characters have pretty cool designs, but they're missing so much of the identity of their franchises. I mean, there's a lot of stuff specific to the franchises included in this game that could have been fun, even as skins. But it's just a bunch of boring, obvious guns that appear in every other FPS game ever.
Also, one thing I will give the game, just to make sure I'm not completely shitting on it here, is that it is free to play, which is very nice, but it just was not enough to compete with Black Ops 6's release, especially when people playing Black Ops 6, especially myself, just have Game Pass, which if you're doing some girl math, it's practically free. Also, allegedly, it's on the chopping block right now. There are notes that say that after season 3, if there's no uptick in player count, that they're just gonna lose all post-launch support, which is obviously great for a free-to-play title. But there are also spokespeople from the company that are completely denying these claims and saying that they're here for the long haul, they're gonna be pushing forward. Honestly, only time will tell here. And finally, we have
the finals, the world's greatest game show.
That's right! Skyway Stadium is loaded and our contestants are ready.
The finals is a destruction-focused movement-based shooter created by some of the key developers behind Battlefield, which brings just a fresh spin to the FPS arena-style combat. There's 3 key classes to play and a variety of weapons and utilities to use. Engagements are honestly super dynamic because there's so many ways you can go about every single engagement that you have. You can use a sledgehammer to level a building and just knock it completely down. You can also use launch pads to fly through windows. If you really need to, you can set up a zip line. There's so many cool ways that you can work with the environment that you have. Also, the huge allure to this game too is that it has a very unique game mode and also just batch of game modes that they've added post-launch. The main one that I'm going to be focusing on is just called Cash Out, which is kind of a mix between Capture the Flag and King of the Hill, where you take this cash box, you bring it to a vault, and you have to protect that point while other teams can come and steal the point to get cash. Whoever's the most cash at the end wins. Near launch, they got close to 250,000 concurrent players, but staggeringly, it has dropped 95% to be about 15 to 20,000 concurrent players a day. And honestly, from the way I'm explaining this, you may be shocked to hear that I would put this in the failing title, because I'll be completely honest, I actually love this game a lot. This is probably the most unique out of this list by far, and I've easily dedicated the most amount of time to this game in a while. When it came out, I thought this game was going to be massive. I thought it was going to be huge. I was having a ton of fun with it, playing with a lot of buddies, and it was just a complete blast because the game was just fucking fun. And you may be saying to yourself,
oh, why can't, if it's so fun, why aren't you playing it anymore?
And see, that's actually why I made this whole video in the first place, is because I was thinking to myself and I'm like, damn, this game is really fun. Why am I not playing it anymore? And I think that boils down to the theories that I'll go into in just a moment here. While the finals really had an awesome base to work with, they just didn't have enough to keep people around for long enough. When it comes to progression, new updates, modes, stuff like that, Embark really failed to capitalize on the hype. People just came and went so quickly because they had other things to play. That's really the crux of the issue for a lot of these games. So just to be clear, this issue isn't exclusive to the titles above. This is an ever-increasing problem, so what is the problem? Theory number 1 is what I'm calling the TikTokification of games. What I mean by the TikTokification of games is that a game drops, it needs to have drip feed content after launch. And what that can look like, and a great example that a lot of AAA studios are able to execute upon, is they launch, season 1 happens for a game, there's a battle pass, there's new maps being dropped, new updates, new balance patches, we got new content, we got new maps, we got new modes, there's always stuff going on. And the reason why this is so important is because we have TikTok brains and we need Subway Surfers playing on the side of the screen for us to even be okay with watching this video all the way through. The second thing I want to discuss is there being a pro scene. I actually had a buddy who brought up this point to me, and at first I'm like, I don't really know how much I buy that, but then I was thinking about it more and more with a lot of these either legacy titles or even newer titles that come out too. I was really focusing on how if there is a pro scene, first off, they help prop up whatever the meta is. They also bring if they have any following or attention, they help bring that over to the game as well too. And then also if there's some sort of pro scene, you have either outside funding or you have the game itself that's we're gonna take this very seriously, that we're gonna put money on the line for competitions, events, stuff like that. I think honestly having that separation between the casual and the ranked side of things gives different parties different things to work towards. Because yes, while you will have the people that really just care about just playing the game, having fun, taking a load off, whatever, you are gonna have the other people that want something to strive for that's not just also goofy challenges, as I mentioned earlier in the TikTokification side of things. You may just want people to be able to grind out ranked, play people that are better, get the ranked rewards, or even move past that if they get really invested in the game and move on to maybe some semi-pro or pro level. Also, the third issue, which was brought up by one of my buddies who actually is in the game industry, so I thought this is actually very valuable to bring up as well, is that studios want to see a game succeed before greenlighting additional content, which can be a huge shot in the foot because then you're giving the developers no lead time whatsoever to actually make content post-launch. So say for example, if a development team is working on a title for years and years and years, they drop it, it does well, and they have no content to back up post-launch. The problem is that you're not doubling down on your own project. And all that does is it shoots the team in the foot. Say, for example, if studios were like, you know what, we're going to invest in the launch, and we're also going to invest in post-launch content for the next 6 months, so we have enough time to develop, not just seasons 1 and 2, but we can develop seasons 3 and 4 while seasons 1 and 2 are just like in the process of running in that first 6 months of the game being live. And the problem is that if you're not doing that, you're not able to focus on new content that will keep people engaged or bring people back if you lost them in that first period of time. So to paint a picture real quick, let's say you get home from work or school and you have dinner, you eat, you're ready to take a load off, and you're ready to relax at night, and you have some options in front of you. You can either go and play Concord with the 699 people that were there at launch and also pay $60, or you can play Overwatch 2 for free. It's been around for 8 years, and you can play with all your friends. There's a pretty clear answer here. And I think this is what all this boils down to, is that when you have a game that launches and it doesn't have anything that is standout enough, you don't have anything that's exciting, what's going to happen is people are just going to revert back to whatever they're comfortable with, or they're just going to move along to the next new exciting thing. And I really think that's what the crux of the issue is here, is that you can have a good game, it can have a great studio behind it, it can be super hype at launch, but you really need enough to make sure that people stay engaged and stick around, because if not, then you are just going to be faded into irrelevancy so quickly. And it's a tragedy, really, because there are so many great titles out there, but that's just the reality of the situation. There are so many titles that exist that it's going to be so difficult for a new game to cut through the noise if they're not doing something extraordinarily different, or taking an idea that is already super commonplace and people love and just making it 10 times better. So that is why video games, despite having huge development teams and what seems to be endless budgets, tend to fail. Now, honestly, please let me know what you think in the comments down below. I want to just do a quick shout out to everyone that's checked out the previous videos. Honestly, the last video I was not expecting it to do as good as it did. If you left a friendly comment on there, leave another one here. I love to see them, really, and I do want to try my best to respond to everything. Again, if you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, stuff like that. Make sure also, please give me some of your thoughts down below as well, too. I would love to hear if you think that some of the theories that I outlined align with maybe some of your beliefs as to why a lot of these games are failing. I talked to a couple different friends about establishing this video and also their thoughts too. Some of them just avid video game players, some of them also in the industry as well too, just to kind of get their thoughts and their perspectives on some of these notes here. So I really do hope that it's provided a little bit of clarity as to why I think a lot of these games are failing. And again, it really does suck too, because a lot of these games too are so much fun to play, but they just get squashed by either other behemoths in the space that just really have a well-oiled machine for keeping people engaged, or it's just it was just nothing stand out, so to speak. And that's just something you see all too often with a lot of these game titles. So I would love to see your guys' thoughts as well too. But again, that's practically it. Again, I'm Cam. Take it easy.